Alright. Welcome back. I hope we're going to finish a parak today, which will be fun. We are Midrash Bereishit Rabba, chapter 12, number 13. And we are towards the beginning of chapter 2 of Bereishit in terms of what the lectionary text is. And this is about this business of Ele Toledot Shemayim Ba'aretz Behibaram. So on this, there is an argument. Am I reading? Looks that way. All right. So Rabbi Yitzchak with Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. So there is an argument between Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar, Melech Basav Adam, Boneh Ohel, Umoteach Ohel. So a flesh and blood king builds a tent and stretches out the tent. And those of you who are in shul will know that I was talking about this precise verse, its precise image, straight out of the Haftarah from Kitetse, from Isaiah. A nunki, I had to look up a nunki. I had to look up a nunki because I don't speak Greek, right? A nunki from the Greek.
A monkey.
A nunki. Sorry, a nunke. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting, right? In the grab from the dictionary, it's punctuated a nunke. And in the pointing that you've got in the book that we're using, it's an unki, and I am as sure as I can be that it should be pronounced an unke because it's not a Hebrew word, yes. Right? It's
coming from a different part of Greece. The person.
They're coming from different. Yiskadal. Right. So a nunki, perforce, right, corresponding b'nohag sheba'olam. So in the way of the world, a nunke, entropy, right? I mean, I think we're going to see what's going to happen, but just to right, in the course of time, it must become loose. I mean, we'll see it in the text in just a second.
You talk about the tent or the human being?
A tent. A human being erects a tent. After a while,
of necessity, it will become slack.
It will become slack. It will sag a bit, right? I mean, so it's.
Unless you put Louis Jakes, unless you put firm the.
Yes, I mean that's the pasuk. That's the pasuk from Isaiah, and absolutely. But even still,
even if you put the
a nunke, if you do go camping, you can put your tent up. You'll probably be fine for a couple of nights. But come in. But a couple of nights are in, you'll have to breathe and come in. Hi, Gizifir. Welcome. We are erecting tents today. Right, so a human being puts up a tent, a human king puts up a tent. A nunke al yedei shahut hu rafe kima. It will sag a bit. Baram hacha, but here, right? I mean, you can see. We're starting to develop, I think, the fluency with this kind of thinking. Set it up with the king Basav Adam. Baram hacha, and here, and I remember Brian, you saying this a couple of weeks ago. Are we going to spend this much time in Job all the time? But while we're talking about how great is creation, you betcha, in and out the back end of Job all the time. Job 37. This is the pasuk. Tarkia imo shachakim, right? Can you translate it here? Spread out the sky. But what do you know about that root? Tarkia.
Rakia.
Yeah. Can you rakia the sky? Right. I mean, so how did God? God put the rakia. Actually, I was sitting there thinking, I'm just not sure I know enough about this rakia business, right? So so you've got the
ark of the heavens.
Yeah, well, exactly, and we were gonna see a bit more about it here. So
can you spread out rakia?
Yeah. So but literally, this is, can you rakia with God? The sky. Right? And when God rolls out the sky, God puts a rakia in it. So just to have a look at the extract from Brown Driver Briggs, which is the one that doesn't look like it's a screen grab, that's just here. I just thought we'd just have a little look at what's going on here. What am I grabbing from here? This is called the Brown Driver Briggs, known in the trade as the BDB.
Can't afford it.
Available online, and I do have a copy, but mine just seems to have walked slightly. Absolutely, a classic of Christian academic biblical scholarship from the early 20th century. It is all the biblical roots, all analysed, probably demonstrating knowledge, I would say, of about 12 different languages, including things like Coptic and Syriac and Ugaritic, as well as Aramaic. It's...
How to feel inadequate in one easy lesson.
Well, I mean, it did take 3 of them, to be fair. But it's just a fantastic book. So, Rakia, an extended surface, an expanse as if beaten out. Interesting, right? Compare Job 37:18, right? That's Bing. That's exactly the root that we were just looking about. Compare the Syrian version. No, you then got the Greek here as well. It's an expanse, a base, a support, right? It gets translated as a firmament, but I don't know what firmament actually means. It feels like the sort of it's the thing on which the heaven is sitting, right? Yeah. There is a like a diaphragm, I guess, that things rest on top of, and that's what stops the sky falling in on our heads.
And it's got water above it.
And it's got water above it, and there are pinpricks in it, and through the pinpricks you see the light on the other side of the rakia, which is the stars. That is the cosmology of all ancient peoples. I mean, it's clearly nonsense, but here in the extension, sorry. Why have I got? Let me do just a bit more in the midrash, and I'll come back and just say a bit more about this. Right. So, can you rakia the heavens with God? O foolish mortal. Right. That's the bit that we know because we know what's going on in Job, the back end of Job. Oh foolish mortal, can't you understand? Can you pull off making a rakia? If you were to say that the heaven gets slack, like any king putting up any kind of a tent, right? So here the rakia is an analogy for the tent. Talmud Lomar, you should know that you shouldn't think that the rakia is going to get slack. The verse carries on to say, back into the verse, Chazakim Kri'i Mutsak. It's like a cast iron mirror, and I guess that's the straw.
Well, there were the mirrors in those days. They were made of cast iron. Yeah.
Fantastic, great,
Yeah.
good, yeah, right, buffed up, So, and it's not. If you were to stretch out something over distance, I mean that meant cloth, of course, right? In the ancient mind, you couldn't manufacture steel. You couldn't manufacture polymers and all this kind of stuff. But God can stretch out the equivalent of a cast iron mirror, and to someone who knows how to make a cast iron mirror, you're like, blimey, that's a bit impressive. Because I've been working for the last 6 hours, and I've got a cast iron mirror that is this big. The idea of a rakia's size cast iron mirror is impressive to me. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Amar, Basar Vadam Mutsak Kelim, a flesh and blood person who is making vessels or casting vessels. So again, we're in ironwork worlds. You're making your pot. When you're making your pot, a nanki or a nanke al yidei shahut hi ma'aleh chluda. After a while, it gets a bit rusty. So it's a similar idea. It is the human being tending to entropy. Baramhacha, but here. And he's back in the same verse from Job. Chazakim karei mutsak, God's pot, right? And God's metal kalim is like an iron mirror, and it's still as shiny today as it ever was, right? It hasn't. What do mirrors do? Not verdigris. What's the word I'm looking for? Tarnished, right? No tarnish whatsoever. Nirim kamin tarkia. It looks like a kind of tarkia. So I looked up tarkia with an aleph, right? And it said, look it up with an ayin. And I'm pretty sure that there's a spelling mistake there because tarkia is beaten metal foil. the heavens look like beaten metal plate. Right, so that's what I think. I mean, I don't know enough about, and that's, by the way, the Jasher bonus there. Yeah, you can see Genesis Rabba section 12. That you would get your metal and you would bang it until it was flat enough that you weren't wasting all this excess metal. So you get it flat enough, and then you would buff up one side.
Planish it after, yes.
And
Planish it.
plant, yeah, what? Stick it in water. Yeah, or no, or was
No,
that you?
it's the fire,
With a file.
then the water.
And then the
Yeah.
water. Planche. Yeah?
Did you planish metal?
Planish. You know what? I
Planish.
don't know this. I love words
Plant.
like this. What was the word that we were having? We were having
I
we were having a conversation.
I thought it was when it gets heated and stuck in water.
Joe was in today going, is the mantle or the wimple the bit that goes, you know, it's like, I know which, you know, words that you, I mean, I know a whole bunch of Hebrew words I don't understand. You know, my favourite English word that you will know the Hebrew for is peduncle. You've heard me say this, I'm sure.
Oh, peduncle?
Yeah.
It sounds like something on your foot.
Did you get some National Health help to help you with that?
It's the English word for a pitan.
Is it really?
Small foot.
Oh, right.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just kind of interested. Right. It's the same midrash. It's not really a disagreement. It's even the same verse. But you know, we're just learning a little bit about, you know, their mise en scène, their seat in life.
I have to say that Brian's absolutely right. There is a word called planish, and it means to flatten sheet metal with a smooth-faced hammer, or between rollers.
Oh, the smooth-faced hammer. So that's exactly, yeah. So planish.
Planish.
Planisa.
Planets, flat.
After it's been heated, I think.
And that's what gives it a shiny
Finishing the
surface.
surface by finely shaping and smoothing sheet metal.
Yeah, great. I mean, you know, I mean, you're a man who knows material culture. I'm not in any way surprised that you that you were on that.
Useless piece of it. Sort
No, not useless.
And here we are, and here's the use for it. Good things I learned. Okay, Rabbi Zaria, Al Hadid Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Zaria has overheard this thing that Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish has said, which is basically God doesn't go off. And this thing that Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, Ki vo shavat mikom melachto, eile toledot shmayim va'aret behibaram. Sorry, let me do that again. Ki vo shavat mikom melachto, and then the very next verse is Ele toledot shmayim behibaram. Ele yom yotzeh, yom nichnes, Shabbat yotzeh, Shabbat nichneset, Yotza Shabbat nichneset, Chodesh yotzeh, Chodesh nichnes, Shana yotzeh, Shana nichnes. Days come, days go, months come, months go, and God's kingdom goes on forever. You know, the earth continues as it was. So it's a series of God doesn't entropy, and the stuff that God makes doesn't entropy either.
I mean, don't you see sometimes? I don't know if it's like Islamic buildings. Sometimes you have the roof is like a dome, isn't it, of metal, beaten metal. Always this kind of
And is that? Do you think that's about Rukia? Is that about the
Do you think they could have got that idea from?
I don't know. I mean, I've got absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea. Next time I'm at the mosque before Rosh Hashanah, I will ask. I will ask. Yeah, nice little.
From Israel.
Nice little midrash. I like that one. Okay, next verse. B'yom osot Adonai Elohim eretz v'shamayim. So let's just see the translation of that. Because it's another one of these examples of you would never have had a problem with this verse until you've been told that you have to have a problem with it by the Midrash. Such is the story of the heavens and the earth when they were created. I mean, you know, it doesn't even translate the dayness of that. Extraordinary, right? But it says B'yom osot Adonai Elohim eretz v'shamayim, which means what time of day did God make the earth? In the daytime. Had you ever encountered? You know, had you ever sort of worried like what on earth that meant or when God created it?
Yeah, we basically think of a day as a day at 24 hours.
Exactly.
Don't we?
So we're just being honed to now consider a day to be the 12 hours of sunlight, of daylight. Right, this is of course before the creation of the sun. I mean, it's all. I mean, it's just it's playing with the game. Bet Shammai uvet Hillel, an argument between the houses of Hillel and Shammai. Bet Shammai omrim machshava b'layla umaseh b'yom. Right, Bet Shammai says, yeah, God thought about it at night and did it during the day. I spent a bit of time looking at this and decided I'm not going to start looking at crazy amounts of stuff, particularly when I saw the word that says V'yeshkan poskim rabim. There are many people who have tried to work out what on earth this midrash is going on about. But when it's
creating the universe, is that what
when God made heavens and earth b'yom in the daytime, Shammai says that God thought about it at night and made it during the day. Can you see where I am in the little commentary here? So the word that begins with asot, the line that begins with asot, yeah, hare shurak asiya hita bayom, that only the making of it was done at daytime. Aval machshava hita b'layla, but God thought about it at night. Kederach b'nei adam hachoshvim b'layla umotziim lif'ol b'yom. This is just like people who think about what they're going to do in the evening and then actually do it in the day. You know, the sort of thing now, just to give you just a rough example of the sort of thing that this could be. You know, Rabbi gets an idea for a sermon at 2 o'clock in the morning. He goes, it's a great idea for the sermon. You only write the sermon at 10 o'clock in the day, but
how many problems have you solved? Have you tried to work it out all day long?
Okay, good. So you're so far enjoying Bet Shammai. Bet Hillel Omrim, Machshava Umaseh B'yom. God thought about it and made it during the day. What is Hillel's problem with the idea that we've just had from Bet Shammai? God thought about it during the day and made it during the day.
That's Hillel saying.
Has to be during the day, yeah, Hillel. Has to be made during the day because B'yom Asot. Right? But Hillel says that God thought about it in the day and then made it in the day. What's the problem with saying that God thought about it at night and then made it in the day? How long does it take God to think something through and then do it?
We imagine not long.
Yes. Says Hillel to Shammai. How dare you suggest that God had to, think about it for a while and then having come up with the idea didn't do it immediately? How crazy for you to see, and I'm continuing in the commentary. Can you see where you've got beyond? Well, right, exactly, right? Yeah. How could you, Shammai, say such a thing as perhaps God needed to sleep, or, think about it a bit more deeply, or, as I say to my children, have you read through your homework? It's like this, how can you suggest such a thing beyond? So can you see where I am in the commentary at the bottom here, beyond? There's no difference between thinking about something and doing it for God. And when the verse says that God made it during the day, it includes both the thinking about it and the doing it. And this is when you start picking up some of these Rishonim who've chipped in on this, right? And have a look at the Ravaz, and have a good. The Ayin Shem means that he spends a lot of time on this, and he brings lots of other footnotes at this point. Back into the Midrash, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, who's also going to decide to get in. I am staggered that the great houses of the world, or the fathers of the world, would disagree on such a matter. This is being Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel about the creation of the world. Ella machshavot ben b'yom ben b'layla u'maseh im dimdume chama. Rather, how did God think about stuff? Well, everybody thinks about stuff at night. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, this is slightly anachronistic because I'm now reading the Zohar as actually being the product of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, which I don't believe. But Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai in the Zohar is continually reported staying up all night. He thought about stuff in the middle of the night kind of a person, and some of these kind of Kabbalistic rituals of Tikkun Leil Shavuot and Tikkun Chatzot and all these kinds of things involve staying up at night. So he obviously, there was something that allowed him to think at night. We've all been there. Some of us might have been there just last night. Did I mention I'm writing a lot of sermons at the moment? Right. So God thinks about it the whole time. Bein b'yom uvein b'layla. Right? God is continually invested in the machshava, in the thought process of begatting the world. But of course, there can't be any delay between God thinking about it and God actually doing it. So when does God actually do it? On the basis that God needs to do it during the day. God does it in dimdume chama. How do you want to translate dimdume? Or what route are you going to? You probably know this. Dum?
Blood.
Yep. In the blooding of the sun.
Oh, sunset.
Yeah.
Or sunrise, I suppose. Could be
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Right? So God makes on the cusp, at the liminal moment between darkness and light, in order to make it during the day, in order for there to be no separation between God thinking about it and God and God doing it. V'yesh kam poskim rabim.
Is that why God created during the day, the emphasis on the day? Is that why so many of the mitzvot
Telu b'yom,
to copy it the way?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know.
What
what's
other
the
word would you use unless you're going to start giving the hour? I mean,
The emphasis on the day is so much more important than the night.
You get
I mean,
this a
I've
bit
been
on
in
Friday.
the ancient world,
nothing much happens.
nothing
at night.
happens at night. I
Everyone
mean,
went to sleep. You couldn't-
there's a really interesting paper that was written by my good friend and teacher Hart Green, who said that you can plot the arrival of these kind of midnight Jewish rituals to 15 years after the arrival of caffeine in the areas where these rituals first emerged. Because you simply you are just not going to do something like Tikkun Shavuot,
Unless you've got
in a
coffee.
pre-caffeinated environment. These things kind of grew, and when caffeine arises, and I remember,
Caffeine.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
coffee.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember experiencing this as a student. It's fantastic. I can drink coffee. I can stay up all night, and I can get this paper finished tonight. But it drives a certain degree of perhaps slightly manic tendencies, which I think we can see in some of this kind of stuff. But I mean, I do think this is interesting, and I've slightly cheated by looking at the next midrash up, which this midrash introduces this idea. The next midrash is suffused with this idea about the kind of liminality of creation. I think that a creation, im dimdume chama, at the bloodening of the sun, it just sets up creation as something just a little bit more variegated, dangerous, less safe, less obvious. I think when you read the first paragraph of Bereishit, the first paragraph of Genesis, everything is so. This goes here, that goes there. This is this, that is that. This is the other. This is the first. Opposite, and it's good, and it's good, and it's good, and it just doesn't feel like the world I live in. But this kind of notion of a world created b'dim dume chama, that's a slightly different idea. We're going to see a slightly different idea here when we get into the second paragraph of the second creation of the world, which is the opposite of the first creation story of the world. I think we'll just start experiencing what I think is a rabbinic attempt to portray the world as a more fragile thing than the first paragraph of Genesis portrays the world as, and I think that's quite a noticeable rabbinic engagement, which I quite like. Liking complexity and fragility more than solidity. So then, let me just get a as I'm looking vain for it. I should be able to find Torah scrolls, the Torah in my office a bit more easily than I sometimes make it look like I can. Okay. Eladot Shemayim ba'aretz behibaram, bayom osot Adonai Elohim eretz v'shamayim. Right. Those are the verses that we've just done up to this point. But the interesting thing about everything up to this point is Vayom Elohim, Vayi O, right? Vayom Elohim, Vayom Elohim, Vayom Elohim. But now, for the first time, we get Eretz Shemaim V'Hibaram B'Yom Osot Adonai Elohim. This is the first appearance of what we'll come on to call the Tetragrammaton, or the ineffable name of God, the Yud Hey Vav Hey name of God. And now we have these two names of God. It's wrong to say that first we had Elohim and now we have the Yud Hey Vav Hey. Rather, we had one, and now we've got both. This is a new interruption, and that is exactly the sort of thing that we should expect Midrash to go, hello, what's this other name of God, or this double name of God? I thought it was one God. Are you telling me there's two gods? Should expect something, and this I think is a great Midrash. Let's get into it, and we'll talk about it. Adonai Elohim, right? Two names of God. Lemelach shahayu lo chosot rikim. There's a king, and he's got these empty kos, an empty kos,
Glass. Got a cup.
cup, kos te, right? Got these empty glasses. Amar Melech, im ani noten letochan chamin, hem mitbakin. If I was to put in them hot water, they would shatter. Tsonen hem markisim. If I was to put in cold water, they would shatter. Hebrew has one word for shattering because of hot and a different word for shattering because of cold. I'm not sure that I quite follow how cold something would have to be to shatter a glass. Probably colder than you would be able to get in the ancient Near East, right? I mean, I don't quite follow that, but I'll go with it because I think the Midrash is
If
interesting.
the glass is hot
If the glass is hot,
and then you put cold in it.
that could do it.
I've done it.
So what does the king do? Omer Asah HaMelech, what does the king do? A rav chamim b'tzonen v'noten bahem v'amdu. God mixes the hot and the cold and puts notan bahen and puts that in them v'amdu. So God puts coolish or mildly heated water into the glasses, and the glasses survive. Kach, right? So mashal lemelech, mashal king, nimshal kach. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, im boreh ani et ha'olam b'midat harachamim, have chatya sgi'in. If I create the world with the midah of rachamim, from the aspect of rachamim, compassion, behold, the sins will be suggy. Suggy is it's usually translated as enough, but here it means it too much. Like enough as in overflowing.
Right? Soft on it.
Sufficient.
Yeah. Well, you just need to translate it. I mean, what it really means is too much, right? If I were to say that I've got enough wine, I would say that the wine is pouring out the top of the cup. That's suggy. It's overflowed.
In the 23rd Psalm, in English, you get
Kosi Ravaya.
Like cup running over.
Kosi Ravaya. Different word.
Oh, sorry.
Great get. But yeah.
We would say sometimes you would say I've got too much sufficiency.
Yeah, too much sufficiency.
Yeah. Sufficiency.
I mean, it's very nice. We have a member of the shul, right? Sagi. We have Michal Sagi Kain. No, I'm Sagi.
With the wine.
Yeah. When enough is too much. But like, if I made the world out of rachamim, the world would the sins would be too great. B'midat hadin, hechalam yochol la'amod. If I made it with din, strict justice, and here you would say a bet din. You would expect proper justice from bet din, but here we're in the Kabbalistic idea, or this this very important idea of strictness, right? Don't really want to be in a world of din. And certainly not on Yom Hadin. What do we ask for on Yom Hadin? El Rachum v'Chanun.
You touched on it a couple of Shabbos ago. The English law originally grew up with common law, and to soften the applicability of it, they relied upon equity. From the church, different set of courts were administered by the church to bring equity into it. In other words, you didn't have to stick strictly to the letter of the law the whole time, and you soften the edges. And then we
got rid of all that.
We melded them together, and then Denning mixed the whole lot so up that no one knew which way was up.
God bless the memory of Denning. It's interesting. Who's probably more responsible for the way in which I understand law than I ever imagined when I was at law school.
Oh, every system needs one of them, but you can't have more than one.
Right? So, if I was to make it just out of strictness, how could the world stand? Like, what would it really be if we were to really be held liable for everything that we do? I mean, it would be an impossibility. And this is matching up against the hot water and the cold water. It slightly is backwards. I think it's a chiastic. The best way to understand it is a chiastic structure: A, B, B, A. Right? If it was too hot, it would shatter. Too cold, it would shatter. Too much rachamim is, I think, too cold. Right? Too much din is, I think, too hot. But so what did God do? Ela hare ani borei oto b'midat din uv midat rachamim. Behold, I will create it with both the aspects of din and rachamim. And now we reach, just this, what becomes very important. And it's the sort of thing that the biblical critics point to as proof that there are two different notions of God, resulting in two entirely different texts, right? That the Yud Hey Vav Hey is a God of rachamim, and and Shem Elohut. See, I can't even do it, right? Because I'm already using the Kabbalistic rabbinic way of referring. But the God Elohim is a God of din, and they'll sort of sit and show you how every time it talks about the Yud Hey Vav Hey, it's rachamim, and every time it's Elohu, it's din, and whether or not that's entirely correct. This is the rabbinic response to the documentary hypothesis. I mean, I believe in the documentary hypothesis. I think there are two documents that have been melded together, but the rabbinic response to this is God, who is neither simply Elohim nor simply the Yud Hey Vav Hey, but exists in some kind of like level beyond that contains both those, knew that if God created the world just using rachamim, the world couldn't have sustained, and just using din, the world couldn't have sustained. So God kind of mixed together in God's self. God pulled to bear on God's self, both the side of rachamim and the side of din, and created a world of lukewarm water. A world which was neither purely hot nor purely cold. Although it's not the great... I mean, I adore this midrash, but it's not the greatest of mashalim, because what is the world? The world is the water. I thought the world was the cups, or the people. Maybe the people are the cups. Maybe the people are the cups. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, that could be a theological understanding. I agree with you. But where they have the two words, it could be. I mean, ancient Israel wasn't monotheistic. And so we have two, from different.
I mean, when you read, the Torah itself, God says to Abraham, I have revealed myself before by this other name. I am now revealing myself to you as this new name. I mean, it so happens that the new name is El Shaddai. The new name is, and God says to Moses, Moses says, "What's your name?" Like, okay, fine. Here we go. Here comes my name. And what comes up? Yet another name that we've never heard of before. Ehiyah, Asher Ehiyah, which I think is best translated as I am whatever I say I will be, which in itself is a name which defeats the purpose of having a name. Hi Joe. In order for me to truly know you, where do you live? I'll be moving wherever I want to move. What kind of an answer? What kind of an answer is that? So God is always, and there is a magnificent passage in the Zohar that I remember learning from Lawrence Kushner at the very first limud I attended, which was a transformative experience for me. But it's this kind of peekaboo experience that God, the Zohar talks about, using this image from Moreh Nevuchim, from the Guide to the Perplexed, that God is inside this castle, and most people don't get beyond the kind of don't get through the walls even. Then there's a bunch of people wandering around in the courtyard in the middle. And there's a couple of people who try and get into the central keep, and there's a couple. But basically, in the centre, God is playing kind of peekaboo. He's just sort of revealing just a little bit, just peek, and then gone. Peek, and gone. And it's only the person who really, really tries to kind of keep penetrating in. You actually get an experience of what it is to sit with God in the inner quarters. Everybody else is just kind of getting on with their business. Some feel closer, some feel further away. But you never get it full on. You only ever get these sort of momentary moments, because God is continually, I don't want to say dissembling, I think that's wrong, but God can't appear full on ever to anything, right? And the only times that God ever does, people get zapped. You can't see me and live, and Moses covered, and Navad and Avihu and Uriah and all these kinds of stories. So God is just sort of revealing, pulling back. And so here we have a kind of the curtain pulled back on the reality, which is that God transcends both Midat Adin and Midat HaRachamim.
When you say El Shaddai, that's a word, isn't it? What's that mean?
Well, Shaddai, it's usually translated... Well, I mean, the academics translate it as the breasted God.
Blessing.
breast.
Oh,
A shade is also a kind of demonic. I mean, there's an argument about it. It's also sometimes a sort of shadim. Those of you who know your Yiddish, right? There was sort of demons and boogies and all that kind of stuff.
Is that a Yiddish word or
Shade? Well, it's Hebrew. I mean, but
so
you'll hear you will.
Shade, we say shade in Hebrew because when it's sunny, you walk, you see your
In the
shadow.
shade.
Yes, that's shade. And then fortune also means it's a root word for fortune as well. Shade is so it's the one who gives when you are in need or wanting. That's shade. So when it says shadim, I said, our Hebrew word, ancient Hebrew word is shade. The D and the E at the end,
Okay.
which means the shadow.
They're coming to this thought, they're driven by this, because it seems out of place to come to this very profound thought in the middle of everything else that we've been talking about. Just because this is the first appearance of Adonai Elohim.
Right. So, what you're asking is what drives Midrash. Is Midrash really genuinely big? I mean, couple of things to say. One is the Midrash is older than its appearance in order here, right? So all of these ideas are kicking around, and they only get put in
Why
this
would
order.
this one be here? I'm just.
So one of the things that I think is that so as someone who believes that even if the Midrash is clearly making up stuff which is new, it's penetrating to deeper truths. I think the deeper truth of the first story of creation, which is basically exactly where we got up to before Eli Toledot Shemayim Ba'aretz, is spectacularly ordered. And so to penetrate to the deeper truth of that creation, you're only going to see spectacular order. God is in charge, and look how smart God is, and isn't this impressive, and is that and that. But the minute that you've finished it, and all of a sudden, A, you're into a different one, and B, it's upside down, and C, it's just a little bit less kind of clear. I think you have to start kind of going, hang on, really? What? Am I? Did I? What? Maybe this world is not quite so clear after all. I brought with you, let me just do one last thing from this before we move on. The penultimate word of this Midrash, halavai, right? Right? So what did God do? Ani borei oto b'midat hadin u'v'midat harachamim, with both justice and mercy, but halavai! And maybe the world will survive. It's so much more fragile. Can you feel that sense of fragility? And actually, halavai being one of my all-time favourite Jewish words, I Googled it and delighted to have come across an article by my friend and teacher, Rabbi Julian Sinclair. He used to write that fantastic little column in the JC.
Yes,
do you remember Hebrew word of the week?
Yes,
and this is Julian Sinclair on halavai. Halavai or valavai, or actually sometimes with an aleph. Halavai. There's that and the other. Halavai comes from the word lu, right? Lamed vav, as in lu yahi, or ilule, kovasheli shalosh pinot, right? Ilule. If it wasn't so, so let it be so, right? Halavai, it's a kind of this sort of willing. It's not just maybe. It's maybe, and I so hope that it makes it. Yeah, it's like, I'm going to swim across the channel. Halavai, I'll finish. It's not maybe I'll finish, but maybe, and wouldn't it be great if I was to finish? Lu first appears in the Bible when God promises Abraham that his wife Sarah will bear him a son, and an incredulous Abraham can only reply, Lu Yishmael, perhaps Yishmael will be all right. I mean, there he's kind of slightly wishing no, but he's kind of not overplaying. And the most poignant valavai in the Talmud is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Of course, we haven't met today. He's on his deathbed. His students ask him to bless them. He says, "May it be God's will that the fear of heaven should be upon you, just like the fear of flesh and blood. That you should fear God as much as you fear humanity." And the students go, "Only that much? Surely we should fear God much more than we fear King of Flesh and Blood." Valavai, says Yochanan ben Zakkai. Would only you be as scared as God as you are of a policeman. It's a really, so it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful word, and it's profoundly theological to me. I'm still shopping around for one Yom Kippur sermon. Maybe I'll do it on halavai. It also is in the language of the captain of the sailors on Jonah's boat, right? When they want to throw everybody, they throw all the stuff aboard, and they draw line, and he said, would that it be so. It's that kind of affirmatory acknowledgement of fragility, which we could do with a bit of in this society. Sorry, who gets me? Yeah.
Ancient Hebrew word for confusion. Olu, you are confused. You see that God from earlier, before he asked God, Lu, Ishmael, God has already told him that he will give him descendants through via Sarah.
Well,
But
listen, please God, we'll
because
get
he
there.
was confused, he said, rather Ishmael. So Elu, in that sense, confused.
Yeah.
This reminds me of this business where
Oh, of course it's in use in Yiddish. Yeah. I mean, how could Yiddish take a word like that and not use it? I mean,
would that we cared as much about what God thinks as about what other people think. And that's old rule that the difference between burglary and stealing and so on, one is at the day and one is at night. And contrary to your natural instinct, you'd think that you'd get deeper punishment if you did it at night rather than during the day when people are around. And
You do.
the rule is no, because if you do it during the day, you're showing contempt. You don't care. It is right around, is it? Where you don't mind whether people know, but God knows anyway. That's right. You're trying it at night. You care
the burglar tunneling
That's
into
right.
the house.
You don't care that you're concerned that you should hide what you're doing from people, but you don't care that God knows. And that's far worse than when you don't care whether God or people know because you're doing it in daylight.
What's
So
the
you get heavier.
civil legal issue there?
I'm talking about civil.
Not civil.
In criminal law nowadays.
Civil as in English law rather than Talmudic law.
Yeah.
So I meant the civil criminal law, the law of the land, civil. Sorry, that's what I meant. As opposed to, Gerald is talking about the Talmudic law.
Right.
I meant civil as opposed to Talmudic, not civil as opposed to
Well,
criminal.
the law now is whether you break in by day or by night, it's still burglary. It's entering as a trespasser with intention to steal
Or rape.
grievous bodily harm or whatever.
So what was that case about the guy in the socks on the windowsill?
Yeah.
Something she'd never forget. All right, here we go. Long story.
Collins.
Well done. Yes. Collins, absolutely. It's one of the most interesting and amusing and profound
It
cases
says
in.
any part of your body which enters the premises is an effective entry. I mean, it's sort of.
Never mind. All right, back to Midrash. Back to Midrash.
Common law has a lot in common with Talmudic study. When you see it,
Is it an effective and a substantial entry? I can't remember. I have to look up Collins again. And anyway, maybe we've overruled Collins by this time.
Here we go. Eretz v'shamayim. Right. So this is we're continuing now in our second story of the creation of the world. Hang on. Let me just do this because it's going to be worth picking this stuff up. Where are we? Eli touched Shemaim va'aretz b'hiba'am b'yom asot Adonai Elohim Eretz v'shamayim. Right, on the day that God made Eretz and Shemayim. Mashal legion shehimlich et hamelech techila. That so a parable to a legion. Anyone want to hazard a guess at the translation? Very good. A legionary who melechs the melech first, right? Shehimlich et hamelech who coronates. What's the word I'm looking for? Bigs up the king for the king's kingness first. Amahamelech, hoel v'legion zeh, chani techila, harei ani noten lo porokpi shelo tazuz mimenu leolam. Since this legionnaire anointed, anointed. What's the word? Acknowledged, proclaimed. There we go. Proclaimed me first. Behold, I am going to give him a pericope.
What?
Right, and How's your Greek?
P.
Promotion,
Yes.
promotion, preferment, Genesis Rabba, section 12, end, bing, there's the Jastro bonus. Because this legion was the first to proclaim me king, I will give it a preferment. Here we go, you're reading on, which will not be taken on from it. I wonder if it's like the kind of, the ways in which I'm reading Robin Hood stories to my son. And it's all about who gets the land. So the king gives the land to the baron of the and that becomes their property and property forevermore. It's that kind of business, right? So this legionnaire gets this pericope that will never leave from them. Kach. So that's the nimshal. Here we go to the. Sorry, that's the mashal. Here we go to the nimshal. Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu Ha'el b'ha'aretz hi'osota tzvin yoni techila. Because the earth tzvid me first. Behold, I will give it a pericope. I'm going to give it this kind of thing. Shalot tasuz mimenu la'olam, which won't go from it forever. There's a verse in a second, but let's just have a look at this word sivion, which is on the second sheet that I handed out. So just when let's start with the second one further down on the page. So a tzvi is a deer or a gazelle. Like, I know that, but it's also this kind of desirable thing, this coveted thing. So I wonder if it's one of those, you know what, I have no idea if this is true. I wonder if this is D-E-E-R and D-E-A-R coming from the same place in both Hebrew and in English. Here's another example. The word davak means cleave, meaning in both Hebrew and in English, splitting something apart or joining something together. So there are occasionally things like that kick around. I don't know if this is one of them, but tzvion, right, is desire or pleasure. I'm at the top of the page now, right? All these things which are absolutely lovely. Because the daytime or the earth pleasured me, right? So God makes a garden of pleasure. There's something pleasurable about earth. What's the big theological idea going on here? It's called Sarach Gavoha, the need of the high one. That God needs an earth to king up God's kingship. God's omnipotence isn't such that God doesn't need someone to big up God. So God therefore has to create this non-reliable, finite, mortal thing, which of course doesn't do the thing that God wants God to do. God wants the earth to big up God, but the earth kind of gets on doing its own kind of slightly kind of less reliable thing. But that's the idea. God creates this world in order to have something to sivion God, and the earth does it. So Haran in the term pericope shalot. So what is the earth's pericope? Well, we're going to learn about it from this verse. Hadahu dichtiv in Tehillim 104. Yasad aretz al mochoneha bal tamut olam va'ed. Who founded the earth on its foundations, so it should not move forever and ever. So there is playing with permanence and fragility a lot. We're having a real backwards and forwards. We are 10 minutes early.
Aretz for Shema. It's no.
Yeah.
Shema.
Yeah. So that's part of the fact. The second version of Genesis is backwards to the first version. But yeah, it's exactly. Why is this remarkable? God created the heavens and the earth, but now on the day of the creation of the earth and the heaven, you get the sense of the earth went, "Hi, God, I'm gonna, proclaim you. I'm gonna himlichoto. I'm gonna anoint you. Not anoint, proclaim. We don't have. It's interesting. We don't have the vocabulary, or at least I don't, in English, to carry all these kinds of words. But they're big. There's a lot of them in Hebrew.
That's right.
The fragility was like inbuilt in the creation of the universe.
Depends which version of Genesis you read. Certainly.
This Midrash applies that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic. I think you're all going, right? next week.
Yes.
I hope you have even a quarter as much of a fun time as I did. Again, if you're interested in reading up before you go, this book, Sacred Text, is just magnificent. No class next week. And I think no class over Rosh Hashanah. That's okay.
So after next week,
Let me have a look at the diary. So I'd like maybe we'll do one in the we'll do one in that between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Thank you.